Hey, what's up? This is Fetta here. I'm going to share with you today in our Wealth Walk the framework that the top 1% of wealth have used historically to build so much wealth that they don't care how much passive income they have. Stay tuned. All right, passive income. We're doing a wealth walk today. So I've been doing these wealth walks. I'm doing it in the neighborhood today because I saw a rattlesnake last week and it is snake season. So I don't want to be watching that while trying to talk to you guys. So there's a lot with passive income. And if you're a follower of mine, if you're a client of mine, if you're watching this video and you're like, man, I want to build passive income. I want to have financial freedom. I get it. I really do, right? And I agree, passive income is cool. It's important. I don't actually like the word passive income though. I like the word residual income. But here's the thing, I study the top 1% of wealth throughout history. Like I read their biographies, I study them on a daily basis. I've been doing this for about a decade plus now. When I study the real top 1%ers, the old dead ones, that's one of my rules. I don't study anyone that's living. Okay, if they're living, they can still screw it up. They can still fumble the ball in the end zone. So I'm studying old dead top 1%ers. And what I've noticed with this is when I'm reading their biographies, they say almost nothing about passive income. And I had this thought and I was like, man, I really want to share this on my next video. But like, if you think about where did this fixation come from with passive income? Because it seems to be something that we all agree with, don't we? Right? It's like you talk to someone that's not into Wall Street and banks and all the normal stuff, and that's the thing they're thinking about. They're thinking about, how do I invest for passive income? I had a lady I talked to yesterday. That was the first thing she's talking about. I need to get into real estate and I need to, man, it's almost like we're programmed. And I'm not here to say that, again, that passive income is a bad thing. Again, I like to call it residual income, but I want to know, where do these things come from? Because one of my rules is that if everyone's doing it, it's probably not a good idea. Right? That's one of them. Another one of them is if I have one of these, like, everybody thinks this, everyone's doing it, and I can't clearly identify where it came from. Who said it? Who taught it? Where did it originate from? For me, that's a matter of concern, right? So I started looking back. And I want to just trace my steps with you because I think this is really applicable. I started looking back, doing some research and trying to figure out, like, where did this become such a popular thing? And what I came up with was it was actually the rich dad stuff, right? Rich dad, poor dad, the whole passive income, cash flow thing. And here's the deal. That's not an old dead top 1%er. So I don't study that person. I don't study that material. I don't follow that curriculum because that's not who historically has the track record. Who do I study? I study people like Andrew Carnegie. I study people like J. Paul Getty. I study people like R. Nelson Nash. I study, the old money top 1% that they built wealth over a century and they've kept it. And they don't talk about passive income. Now, if you read Gospel of Wealth in Andrew Carnegie's biography, there is a section in there where he briefly mentions it. And this is what I want to lay down today with our framework on this video, is that he talks about, he invested money in a company and he received his first dividend check from the company. And he talks about the moment of realizing, like, this was the first time he made money without trading time. He just put in capital or money. And the result of that was that he made income from it. And he said that that was a game changer. Now, with that being said, let's just take a pause here. If you don't know, Andrew Carnegie was America's first billionaire. Still today, one of the wealthiest people in American history. Like, I think Musk and Bezos are just now catching up to him. The only person that beat him was John Rockefeller. And had Carnegie not given away so much of his wealth, he probably would have beat Rockefeller as well. But he wasn't in it for that. But my point is that this is not like a bro that we're talking about who has maybe his first $1 million or $2 million or, some social media influencer. This is one of the wealthiest people in our country's history. And he had this moment of investing and getting his first dividend check, which was passive income. And he realized, man, I can put money into stuff and have it pay me, and that this is a game changer. What he did not do is make that his focal point. And here's what I want to tie in with today, because I'm going to give you the framework of what the wealthy actually do. What I do, and what I'm also teaching my clients and members to do, is that, when you have this thing going on with your passive income, it becomes a fixation sometimes, where it becomes the end and the mean. It's not a means to an end. It becomes the end and the mean. It's like, I want to have passive income and I don't want to have to trade time for money and I don't want to have to work and I don't want to have to this and I don't want to have to that, all this stuff. The problem there is that the wealthy didn't do it that way. So Carnegie still focused on active businesses. Like, if you read his story, and you'll see this theme with the top 1%, they continued to build wealth in the businesses that they knew. And the mistake that I see most people make is because they want passive income so badly, they're willing to get into stuff they don't understand. Hence this conversation I had with this lady today who's like, man, I really need to get into real estate. And it's like, do you really though? Like, is that really something you want to do? Do you think you will enjoy the ownership of real estate, the management of property and people? Or do you just think that that's an easy method to get passive income so that you can escape the thing that you're trying to escape, which is having to work for money, and you don't actually have an interest in real estate? And so most people treat passive income as, getting something for nothing, right? It's gonna take no time. I'm just gonna put money in and it's gonna just do it all for me. What I can tell you is that my experience, and if you study most wealthy people, that's not how it works at all. If you study and you go look online at the people who are doing real estate investing at a very high level, it's become a business for them. It has become an active business for them. And one for one, I've seen everybody that I know that gets involved in real estate, rentals or not, become involved in a business. So what do you wanna focus on instead? Here's what I started to learn, and what I've realized is that the 1%, they focus on owning assets that they understand and that they love. And if it pays passive income, so be it. If it doesn't, so be it. They don't care. They're not in it for passive income. And if you think about, like, the only person that really is fixated on passive income probably is the guy that's paycheck to paycheck with his active income. You feel like you're running on the treadmill and you can't keep up. So the idea then becomes, well, if I can have this other source that pays me and it doesn't take any more of my time because my time is already maxed out, so I can't use that to get more money, so I need to figure out how to make my money make money. You can see the logical thought process there. I can see what people are trying to accomplish. The problem is, it doesn't actually work the way people think it's gonna work. Okay, the passive thing is not passive. Most of the assets that you're gonna get involved in, you're not gonna understand. They're not points of passion for you. And so here's what the wealthy have done instead. They buy into assets that they like, that they understand, that fit them, it fits their goals and purposes. It's stuff that they really wanna own. So Carnegie, for example, he was a railroad guy, so he got into railroads. He was a business guy, so he got into businesses. And he wasn't thinking about, am I actively involved or am I passive? He was like, this is an asset that I wanna own. And when you own assets that you wanna own, your focus and interest level makes them more valuable. If I'm good at business and I'm like, man, I have money and I have it off to the side and I wanna invest and own other businesses, those other businesses are gonna do well simply because I'm interested in them. It's something I want to be involved in, right? I want you to think of anything you've done that wasn't your choice. If you could pick it differently, you would. What happens to your involvement and commitment level? Like, you're not actively trying to be involved. You're like, the least amount of time I can put into it, the better. You get a job you don't like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to leave right when 5 o'clock comes around. You're not interested in staying longer. So if you get into an investment just because you think it's going to pay passive income, and it doesn't pan out the way you thought it was going to be, or wasn't as passive as you thought it was going to be, and it's not something you're interested in, it's not something you're passionate about, the same phenomena is going to occur. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at this. What are the things you're actually interested in? And I want you to invest in those, and invest in them after you understand them well enough to treat them like an investment. Okay, that's one of the things that you'll see is if you study these top 1%ers, they're very educated on the stuff they're investing in. And the few times they've lost money, just like the few times I've lost money, stuff I didn't really understand, it's stuff I wasn't really in control of, and I was just doing it because I thought my money would make me more money with no effort. So here's what I'm doing. Here's the framework I'm practicing. First things first, if you're insolvent, you've got consumer debt, you're struggling paycheck to paycheck, investing is not gonna fix that. Go handle that stuff. And if you don't know how to handle it, I can teach you that. That's something we teach our members, but that's a beginning step. Is like, if you've got $1,000 a month in debt payments, and you're like 50,000 to pay all of that off, 12,000 divided by 50,000 is a higher yield, guaranteed, than you're gonna get anywhere else. So would you be happier if you just didn't have that going on? And if you would, that's the more simple way to do it. Why risk 100, 150 grand to make the 1,000 a month when you could risk nothing and make the 1,000 a month? Like, there's nothing special about being able to say, hey, I'm an investor. That's not a thing. Second thing is, own assets that store your value, right? So I teach people the triangle of wealth. And one of the things that I teach is when you wait to invest, and this is counter to what everyone's telling you, start soon, start with what you have. Okay, that's just because they want more money from more people. I'm telling you, wait till you've done all of these foundational steps. You're not in dire straits, you're not in a desperate financial position, and you have enough money that you think twice about where you're putting it. A $200,000 decision is definitely treated differently than a $50,000 decision. So I want you to get to that point first. Build some financial solvency, build some economic sophistication, some investment sophistication, so that when you go in and finally start investing, you're thinking about what Warren Buffett says is rule number 1 and 2. Don't lose money, and then never forget rule number 1. And I think that that's a better decision-making process. So that's the next part of the framework. So you're gonna get rid of all of your obligations that you can earn cash flow with little to no risk. Then you're gonna build reserves and solvency so that you're investing from a position of strength, not desperateness, or what was the other word I used? Dire straits. You're not like, man, I really have to make this thing work, right? You don't wanna be doing that when you're investing. And then third, own assets that you wanna own. And if you focus on controlling assets that you wanna control and controlling your finances, here's what's gonna happen. You're going to build wealth, and you're gonna have options, and you're gonna have greater financial freedom. And by nature of that, some of that is gonna pay you passive income. You're not gonna have to worry about is it passive or not. But here's the final point I wanna make. If you have $100,000 a month, let's say, it's a big number I know for most people, but let's just use that. If you have $100,000 per month of active income versus, let's say, $20,000 a month of passive income, do you really care if you traded your time for it or not? Like, it's disproportionate to the amount of time you're trading either way. So volume solves this problem. Earning more income solves this problem, whether it's active or passive. But if you tell me, Jerry, I can pay off my debt, I can lower my insurance costs, I can lower my taxes, and that's gonna save me $2,000 a month, I'm gonna tell you, dude, that's better than investing 200 grand to try and get the 2,000 a month. It's like straight up, no risk. Do that instead, right? Or you tell me, you know, I have 50,000 and it's in my account and I'm looking for an investment, but also I could make 50,000 extra at work this year, with my business this year. I'm gonna tell you, why would you risk your capital? Like, it's the idea that time and energy is scarce. It's not. The most unscarce thing you have is your energy. So rather than trying to conserve it and think about like, how do I get the most from putting out the least? I just want you to think about, how do I get the most? Right now, it doesn't matter how much you put out. And when you're wealthy, it's not gonna matter then either. The passive income is for these middle, in between, never plan on building real wealth people. And so they have to do that because they know that they're never gonna earn a massive amount of total income, whether it's active or passive. So just like retirement, I'm not into that concept, right? The idea of do something you hate for 40 years so that one day you can quit and then die before the money runs out. Like, I'm not into that. So if you simply just shorten the timeline and change the assets, instead of stocks and doing it in 40 years, it's real estate and do it in 10. How is that any different? You're doing the same thing, you're just doing it sooner. And so instead, I would say, live life the way you wanna live it. Wealth is a life of abundance and prosperity in all areas. Focus on that, and then build the economic means to get there. And if you focus on that, like, you're gonna live a happier life. Because what I can tell you, I'm gonna wrap it up on this note, is if you focus on how do I put everything into passive income and only do passive and only, invest for real estate, what about when you wanna buy a house? What about when you want the nice car? What about when your wife wants to go on the vacation, right? That's life, like, that's the point. The point of life is not your balance sheet and your passive income. The point of life is to live it. And so if you're building wealth that doesn't allow you to live life because you're so focused on what I would consider to be an out exchange thing, like, how do I have no time or energy or value go out while I get money? That's what banks and Wall Street do to us. We don't like it, do we? So why should that become the goal? So I hope this video today, this wealth walk, I hope this challenged you in your thinking. I hope it gave you a little bit of a different perspective. And if you're one of these people that's been like real estate, passive income, I would challenge you, find one wealthy 1%er who's dead, who talks about that being the way. Don't even listen to me. Write me off entirely. Go find one dead, wealthy top 1%ers that's done it that way and that preaches that that's the method. And I can promise you, you're not gonna find one. So I hope this video was great. Like, share, subscribe. If you wanna learn more about the way that I teach wealth building, and what I do is I share what the historical top 1% have done because they're not around to share it anymore. There's a lot of nonsense about money out there. So I'm pretty simple. I figure if I study old, dead, successful people who were financially wealthy and I just copy what they did, I'll probably get similar results, and that's where I'm coming from. So if you want more of that, you can grab my book. Check out the comments. My team is gonna drop that link there. I've got a free course I wanna give you as well, just to deliver more value on what you can do to start changing the way you approach your finances. Because guys, this financial thing, this wealth thing, should focus on making your life better, right? Creating a wealthy life, not just a wealthy financial statement. See you next time.